Welcome to Just Minding My Business Radio, where we are moving at the speed of God, learning what we didn't know we didn't know. I'm your host, Ida Crawford.
And I'm your co-host, Ruth Haskins.
So grab a pen and paper and get ready for information that you can use.
Welcome to Just Minding My Business Media, LLC. Consider product placement with Just Minding My Business Media, LLC. Visit our website at jmmbbmediallc.com to discover digital products to 10x your business. Contact us at jmmbradio@gmail.com. Today, we welcome Sara McElroy. Sara is the founder of Raze to Rise, an organization created to amplify women's voices from the Great Resignation and inspire others to blaze new trails in their own careers. After a stressful induced shingles diagnosis in early 2021, Sara decided to hit the reset button on her life. She's a former hustle culture devotee, ex-chief marketing officer, the Wall Street Journal's poster girl for pandemic career burnout, and a two-time member of the Great Resignation classes of 2021 and 2022. Finding herself in the company of millions of other women who also set unfulfilling jobs ablaze during the Great Resignation, she returned to her journalism roots and began to explore the stories, breaking points, and defining moments that led women to seek greater opportunity mid-pandemic. Welcome, Sara McElroy.
Thank you so much. Wonderful to be here, Ruth and Ida.
Yes, welcome back. I remember now this conversation that we talked about last time and we interviewed you and the burnout situation. So we want to dig a little bit deeper this time in burnout, because your story is amazing. And if you just want to refresh our audience about how you arrived to this place.
Sure, most definitely. Well, at least with the burnout piece of things, that really began back in 2020 when I took a job as a CMO. I'm thrilled because it's my first opportunity to be a C-level executive, but I'm also working on an executive MBA at the same time. And so between the two of those, I'm trying to prove myself in the new job. I'm, the youngest person on the executive team and trying to show them I'm worth my salt, and I'm trying to graduate and do well in school. And between the two, I was clocking up to 20 hours a day at work. Now, not every single day, but just a really unsustainable way of living. And so I started having my body, of course, your body starts to brilliantly tell you when something is not right. And I started having some health things popping up. I had a couple episodes of throwing up blood, but then finally ended up getting shingles in April of 2021. And after I am sitting in the doctor's office, I'm told that I have shingles. I have this moment of relief, overwhelming relief to hear I've got the diagnosis. In my very warped mind at the time, I saw that I was going to have 10 straight days off of work to rest, and for a socially acceptable reason. Nobody could say anything, nobody at work could say I couldn't have that time. So it was like, to me, it was such a gift, but that was really that wake up call moment for me, because it's like, okay, Sara, I know you've been working so hard to build this perfect on paper career, but it's time to make a change. It's not a normal thing to feel overwhelming relief when you're diagnosed with a condition that could possibly lead to paralysis or blindness. So that was really that turning point moment for me that made me flip my life around.
Wow. But you felt it prior to that.
I did. Yes, I did. And that's been the most fascinating thing with this experience, Ida. I love that you called that out, because as I've been speaking with all of these women from the Great Resignation, capturing their stories, the singular red thread that is woven through every story, because all of these experiences of women walking away are so, deeply personal, very specific things that are happening to us. Everybody is feeling that sort of tension, but very unique in what is actually driving us. But what I found is that the women, as they're deciding to quit, eventually just all came to a place of knowing that it was time to go. Now, some women would also do things like spreadsheets or pro-con lists or budgets or, whatever to kind of plan, because these are women who are, some started their own businesses, some just switched corporate jobs. But ultimately, the women were coming to just this place of knowing, like a deeper, more intuitive place. And that's because we know when these things are taking a toll, right? We just don't always honor it, which is the real shame. And just as far as like our culture, that we would think it's okay. Like, I remember, I haven't told this story actually before on for any interviews. So, but I think it's really important. I after those 2 episodes of throwing up blood in January, I ended up getting an endoscopy to have them look and see what was going on. And the doctor did the procedure and ended up saying that I had some lesions that appeared to be from stress related, acid production. And as I'm going in to get my endoscopy, my boss, who knows I've left the office, because of course I'm not going to take off a whole day to go do it, because God forbid I do that. I went in the afternoon. He calls me while I'm being wheeled into the back to be put down for my procedure. And he knows, or put under, I should say, not put down, put under for my procedure. He knows that's where I am and what I'm doing. And it wasn't for anything important. It wasn't like Rome was burning. It was just, he just didn't care, and that's what's like such a crying shame, because a lot of us feel like that. Like, there's a joke, a meme for a reason about how, like the out of office for Americans, out of office response is like, I'm out of the office this afternoon to have a kidney operation, but if you need me, you can call me or text me and I'll be back on email tomorrow. And, in like other countries, it's like, bye, I'll talk to you in 4 months. It's a crazy thing.
Yes, it really is. It really is.
Sure.
Really is. So that, like you said, he just didn't care, because he knew what you were going for. Mm-hmm. And number 2, he knew you were going to be under anesthesia. And he just didn't care.
Doctor too. That's the thing that's interesting to boot, is he was a doctor.
Oh,
and it just, unfortunate.
Wow. So my first question is, how do women connect with you? Because I think this conversation is so important, because a lot of women, they feeling it, but they don't know how.
Yeah.
Or they haven't come up with a plan as to how, but they actually feeling it.
Yes, definitely. Well, my website for the journalism project is raze2rise.com, and that's RAZE, as in like burn it down to rebuild it back up better and stronger. And I'm on LinkedIn and Instagram as Sara J. McElroy, and I am more than happy to connect, because I know what it feels like when you are there and you can feel your legs moving because you have to, or you feel like you just have to keep going, but you're at war internally because you know it's not good for you anymore. It's a very lonely, very scary place, because you don't know how to stop without losing control of everything. And I really like what you said there as far as going through, they don't know how to go through the process. I think that's really true. We're not taught these types of things related to how to look for signs, how to give yourself permission to let go when the time is there, how to even quit a job and plan for what's next. So through the work, I've actually been able to chart, in speaking to all these women, a 6-stage process that we go through when we know it's time to quit a job.
Wow. That's amazing. And I know you stay busy.
Yes. Yes. Because there are plenty of women to talk to right now, right?
Yes. Now, is this project going to be a book?
It is. Yes, it is going to be a book. Yes, I'm very honored, because this work, not only for someone who has, if I'm really honest, I've long put so much of my identity and worth in my work, and poured myself into jobs, like for example that job that I was at a CMO at, and I would still give all of my heart and soul regardless of what the work was, but like, this is meaningful. This is like true just empowering, life-changing work, having these career conversations with women that we're not really able to have. You know, it could be considered kind of like taboo or uncouth to talk about quitting a job for people outside of the TikTok generation. So I think it's just so powerful the more that we can share our stories, our wisdom, our strength with each other to empower one another and help other women to make the bold moves that they need to make.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And I admire you for taking this on because it needed to happen. I mean, we're talking about everything else. Let's get it on.
Yes. Yes. Well, and I don't know if you all saw, but the new 2022 Women in the Workplace report, which is put out annually by McKinsey and the Lean In organization, they actually titled the report this year, The Great Breakup, because women in leadership roles in particular are quitting at an unprecedented rate, the highest rate that they've ever recorded in the study. And the gap between women and men quitting in leadership roles is the biggest it's ever been. So for women, it's a rate of 10.5%. So to put that in perspective, at its peak in 2021, everyone was quitting at a rate of 5.5%. Men were quitting at 4.4%. But now they're finding women in leadership are quitting at almost double that rate. And what they're saying is that, like, for every woman who is promoted into director ranks or above, there are 2 that are leaving because women are tired of the stress, the burnout, the toxic cultures, being passed over for promotions, being just expected to do like office housework kind of stuff, like the note taking and ordering of lunches and things like that. And women are just fed up, which is just incredible. So like, that's why I'm 100% with you. Like, the numbers don't lie. This is a sound the alarm kind of a situation where we need to be talking about these things and figuring out what we do next.
That would be my question. What is the next step? Once you realize that you have reached, so to speak, your own ceiling, you've had enough. What is the first step that you take?
Yes, great question. Well, so I'll take you actually through the first 2 steps of that 6-stage quitting process, because you covered 2 of them there. One is rumbling, and that's where we're starting to see the misalignment and that things are not really working out anymore. We're maybe starting to see some physical symptoms popping up. We're starting to realize I may have to do something about this. And then we come to this place of knowing, and the knowing comes to us. There were essentially kind of like 3 ways that I was able to pick apart from the conversations that I have. Now, some women would have a combination thereof, but the first would be like a light bulb just shot out of the dark Hollywood moment. My reality is instantaneously shattered. I have to quit. The second is more of a slow build and collecting of little data points that lead up to a breaking point, which is very much where I have been before. And then the third is more coming to just a place of acceptance of like, I'm not going to be able to change this. I'm not going to be able to change this culture. What I don't like about the job, I mean, it could be even I'm in the wrong career. And so I accept that I don't have the control or the power to be able to change the situation. So I'm going to surrender and choose to extricate myself. Now, the surrender can be interesting, right? Because it can be painful when we have to wave that white flag, or it can feel like we're waving the white flag, because that's in our minds. That's what's happening, right? Like it can feel like a failure, or we're disappointed. Gosh, I was so disappointed to have to leave a perfect on paper job that I thought I'd always wanted. But that was probably like very much for me, that kind of like sad moment of surrender. But sometimes surrender can also be really empowering to be like, I'm going to accept it. I can't change it. And you know what? I am on to bigger and better things. So those are the first 2 stages of the journey. Now, to your point, Ruth, then after that, we actually do need to consider making that decision as a unique milestone in the journey, because it's not a foregone conclusion. To your point, even though we know we need to leave, it doesn't mean we're going to make the decision to do so. So in that period, that is really where, as long as we're okay and stable for the time being, we're not dealing with a highly toxic situation, harassment, discrimination, or something that is like really taking a toll on our physical and mental well-being, my best recommendation is to you start to you plan, you figure out what your exit strategy is going to be. You start to look at what you want your next move to be as well, because we want to be conscious architects of our careers. We don't want to be making knee-jerk decisions. And then you're also planning your timing too, so that you're not overwhelming yourself, because a job change is a big life decision. And if we shake our snow globe related to our careers and upend all those things, that the stability that our careers can bring or a job can bring, we want to make sure we're really stable and ready for that. So we move in baby steps in that direction. We have our plan figured out. And then we actually move into action, which is the fourth step of the journey. And that's where we would pull the trigger and submit the resignation letter.
Wow. And that sounds like the way life is, period. You don't like something, you got to fix it, but you have to have a plan.
Yes.
Fix it.
Yeah.
And you have to execute the plan.
Exactly. Well, and then on the other side of after making the decision, the big pieces of the final two steps or stages in the process are after effects and assimilation. And after effects is good, bad, and ugly, because here's the thing, to your point, Ida, like, even if you have a plan, we can't control everything that happens after we quit. Like, we could end up in a new job that actually doesn't turn out to be as great as we thought it was going to be, or we start a new business venture and we have to quickly pivot or change our niche or something. But what we know is that if we are taking that time to make the conscious effort to plan what that move looks like, to get really clear on like, what are my values, my work and lifestyle, the kind of work that lights me up and fulfills me, like you're doing all of that work before you quit, you can at least rest assured that even if that next step isn't 100% right for you, you're moving in the right direction. Now, I'll say this from personal experience and from talking to a lot of women who have had disappointments, and they look back and they're like, yeah, that was terrible, but I know I had to have that step happen. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here today. And that's exactly the case here, because I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you all if after that CMO job, I hadn't moved to Florida, gotten a new job and cut back on working hours, but like, for some reason, my burnout isn't completely healing. And I finally put two and two together that burnout isn't just overworking. It's like, it's the culture. And I was dealing with the sexual harassment situation that wasn't properly addressed for months. So I ultimately quit in January, and I'm only 9 months into that job. I am reeling because I've now quit 2 jobs in the span of 9 months. And it just was so overwhelming and scary. But now on the other side, I've navigated those after effects, and I've come to the final stage of the journey, which is assimilation, where I can see the lessons and the gifts of that experience. As terrible as it was, as much as my mental health was deteriorating, I would not have had the fuel to galvanize this movement and Raze to Rise, because that's what inspired me to talk to other women, was knowing like, I can't be the only woman who's going from one organization to another, one toxic culture to another, getting mired in these spin cycles of burnout. And so it's not to say, I don't want it to come across as some sort of like, some people will call it like a spiritual bypassing, or like, you know what I mean? Like a positivity washing of experiences, because sometimes there are experiences that just are terrible. But if nothing else, we know we are stronger and more resilient on the other side. And we know we learn just as much from what we don't like and what we don't want as we do from what we do like and we do want. So yeah, it's a really like, it's so fascinating, because it's a journey that we don't think about, like quitting a job, that it would have 6 steps and that we should be ready for potential fallout on the other side that isn't what we planned. But that as long as we're being conscious about our decisions along the way and not just making knee-jerk decisions, we're at least being the captain of our careers, and we can take confidence in that we will get there eventually.
Yes, exactly. Because if we had a ball and we could see the future, then it wouldn't be so difficult. But unfortunately,
right.
We can't.
But life would be pretty boring, though.
Yeah, that's true. We can't see from one minute to the next.
Yes.
So we just have to step out on faith.
Yes.
And believe that whatever happens, whatever happens is better than what you just left.
Yeah.
what you're leaving. There's got to be something better than that.
Or it's getting you closer, if nothing else, because it's like sometimes there has to be, and I deeply believe that's true for me, because I was so much the corporate good girl and was terrified. I always knew actually I wanted to do something on my own from a business perspective, but I was terrified at the thought of doing that. I didn't think I had the capability in me. So I honestly think if I hadn't had these really awful experiences back to back, I wouldn't have jumped out even on my own. So I had to have that like sort of kick in the pants, like God, universe, whatever. You're going to be a tough cookie about this. If you're not going to do it, like you're going to need a little bit more of a push. And I think that's been the amazing thing in talking with women is that I have not met any woman who has regrets, because even if they left something and they didn't end up somewhere that was that great, they don't regret listening to that part of themselves, honoring that part of themselves that knew they needed to leave, because there's something like in building that self-trust that is just so powerful. But there's so much of our day-to-day lives in which we are expected to suppress our needs, our desires, our knowing of what's good for us, looking to society and everybody else around us to tell us what to do, that when we honor that, that is really powerful, even if it doesn't take us exactly where we thought it was going to.
Oh, yeah. Who said the road was straight anyhow?
I know, right? I know. That playbook, though, that they gave us when we were growing up, that like is a linear career path, do the same one thing for like 40 years and chase security and stability at all costs. It's not real for our humanness. Honestly, it really doesn't fit for our humanness. And especially if you think about like older companies, the way that there were pensions and things like that, in previous decades, that was something that we were willing to trade. It was a trade-off. Perhaps our level of fulfillment and expansion and growth and excitement to do work that lights us up, we were willing to trade that for the security and stability of a guaranteed retirement on the back end. So we would trade those years for those things. Now, not to say everybody was unhappy with work, but like, it just wasn't a thing that you considered.
Yes.
But now with that being essentially like a unicorn or, close to extinct, I guess maybe you could say would be a better analogy. It's like the game has changed. This playbook, throw it out the window because it doesn't apply anymore. We have to evolve.
Yes,
absolutely. I think that's really important. As you were talking, I'm thinking about older ones who have re-entered the workforce or they've retired. And the same is true for them. That playbook in this generation is totally gone. It's completely disappeared. There's no guarantee. We can't depend on it. So a lot of us are in that position of being in burnout.
Yeah.
And recognizing that we have to move on. So my question is actually, when you were talking about the figures and numbers, does it break it down into age groups where this is happening?
Well, not that particular study, or you know what, I'm wrong. I think there is a diagram in that study. I'll have to get back to you on that. But what I have seen is that the Great Resignation was led, the data shows it was led by the Gen Zers and millennials. And that was really at the forefront of it, but it's changed and it's become more of your Gen Xers and your boomers as time has gone on. Now, this is a Sara hypothesis, right? Just coming as a journalist, I'm no scientist or psychologist, but I would almost imagine that as people are watching these shifts that are happening and people giving themselves permission to make these bolder changes that are about navigating their careers from a place of personal truth rather than societal expectations, and hitting, to your point, that place of burnout, because we were all operating with a baseline level of stress for the past 2+ years that has been higher. And like our nervous systems can't take regular stress on a higher level of baseline stress. So as we start to see that build, and then we see other people making that change, why wouldn't we want to do that for ourselves too? So yeah, it's like this, it's kind of the way any sort of idea spreads, like cultural diffusion of sorts. It's like we start to see it, seeds are planted, and we start to think it's more possible for us as well.
Absolutely. Girl, you are something else.
Thank you.
I am loving this conversation.
Incredible.
And of course, you got to come back again.
Okay.
Because I think it's important that we keep talking about this as much as possible. For those women out there who are on the line, scared to death, they sometimes need to hear this over and over and over again until that day comes where I believe I can do this. Right. I see other women doing it. I hear about it often enough, and I'm ready.
Yes. Oh my gosh. You could not be more true on that with just hearing the stories of women talking about how it took hearing of a couple people doing it. And then along the ways, it's like a seed gets planted and then a tool comes your way that helps you build a little bit more belief that you can do it. And then another seed and then a tool. But yeah, you're right. That rumbling and knowing process, you can actually even end up getting to rumbling and knowing and get stuck before you even get to decision or action. And you just bounce around and you end up in a place of limbo. So yes, you're spot on that. The messaging and building that belief is so powerful.
Yes. So again, how do people get in contact with you?
Yes. The website is raze2rise.com, and that's raze토rise.com. And you can find me on LinkedIn and Instagram as Sara J. McElroy. I would be honored to connect with you and hear your story. And if there's anything I can help with to support you as you're going through this kind of journey, please just let me know.
Absolutely. So Sara knows what she's talking about, been there, done that. She is not talking from a book. She is talking from experience and the experience of other women who are either going through the journey now, getting ready to go through the journey, or coming out the journey.
Exactly. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much, Sara. You have been a blessing as always. And we truly enjoy your energy and your boldness to be able to, make the changes in society for women that need to be made, and support those who are ready or just want to, but don't know how.
Definitely. And thank you all for having a forum that wants to talk about this. This is really amazing. And kudos to you all for that too.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to Just Minding My Business Radio. I'm your host, Ida Crawford.
And I'm your co-host, Ruth Haskins.
We hope you enjoyed the show and appreciate you stopping by. Many blessings to you and yours.